What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Heat Chat podcast. Trade deadline finally went through. We delayed the episode for another week because we thought something was going to happen, but really no big trades happened. But before we get into everything, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Appreciate the support recently, but not everyone's subscribing like you should be. So hit the bell, subscribe, and let's jump into this week. So as a recap, we had some really good games, a lot better than some of these teams I thought were going to perform. But let's look at Carolina. Atlanta, Todd Gurley had a kind of a down night. Honestly, Julio continues to be a very consistent receiver since coming back from his injury. He's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy every single week. But Atlanta, I think I predicted Atlanta to go with Carolina. With Christian McCaffrey coming back, do you still feel like this Carolina team can perform in this division, maybe even poke their head into a wild card spot?
With the Saints and Bucks, I don't. It's a competitive division. The Saints and the Bucks are definitely going to be the top 2 teams. I don't see Carolina poking through with the wild card.
They do have themselves a fantastic rookie. I have seen him play. I can't really remember his name, but I know the
Brian
rookie
Burns.
that they have.
I believe his name
No,
is Brian
not Burns. Burns was I think he was a rookie a couple of years back, but it's some safety that they got right now. But he is playing great for them. I did see Brian. Yeah, Chin. I saw Brian Burns went down with an injury, though. I didn't really look in to see how that went through. So hopefully he's coming through. And speaking of injuries, San Francisco, Seattle, you lose Kittle for the year, and now Jimmy G's got a high ankle sprain. And with how many of those we've seen this year, it's never good. We know it's not good at this point. 4 to 6 weeks, probably landing on IR. Nick Mullins is going to come back in. This San Francisco team can't catch a break, but on the other side of the ball, DK Metcalf, holy moly, almost getting the offensive player of the week here. But he had himself an amazing game. And, of course, one of those guys over there in Seattle, only one of them can have a good week. Both of them can never have a good week. But, yeah, I mean, you can't help but feel for this San Francisco team. I mean, what are your biggest takeaways, especially from the losses that they've taken now?
Dude, it's been unfortunate for 49ers fans. They were looking very good after that Patriots big win. Their run game looked outstanding. And then they put up a fight versus the Seahawks. They started to do a little bit at the end, but, it's too late, too little. No more Garoppolo, no more your best player, Kittle. So it's not looking good in San Francisco.
Seems like the only shining star over there is Fred Warner, to be honest. But Pittsburgh, Baltimore, one of the best games of the weeks, down to the wire. It was pretty much anyone's game. I know you predicted Pittsburgh. I predicted Baltimore. I thought Baltimore could have ended up, and they looked like they could have ended up taking it away at the end. But Pittsburgh, they got some bright futures, Super Bowl contenders, but we'll get into that later because midseason has come upon us. Breeze over a couple of these last games. Dallas, Philadelphia, holy, I don't even want to talk about it. The fact that we almost beat Philly with Ben DiNucci, come on. 4 turnovers against the worst. Not anymore because of the turnovers, but statistically, the worst defense since the merger. That is insane. And went through 2 interceptions to Trayvon Diggs. Love that man now. I knew he was a good rookie, but he had himself a great game. What do you feel like Philadelphia really got away with in this game? Honestly, is this division still up for grabs? I hate the fact that I still have to ask this question, but in my eyes, it seems like it is.
You guys definitely got away with the Cowboys continually struggling offense. They can't get the run game going. Quarterback play, not there, so your weapons are basically not as useful as they should be, even though you guys have one of the best receiving corps in the league. Not using Zeke enough. Underplaying. It's just a bad offense. The defense played pretty well, but they're not a good defense. The team is not good.
Yeah. Any big highlights? I thought Boston Scott was going to have a good game. He didn't. I thought Carson Wentz was going to have a great game. He didn't.
Yeah, Carson Wentz really killed his fantasy players this week who were confident in him.
Fulgham seemed to be the only guy that I really hit on from that team. And then finally, Tampa Bay and New York. Oh, my God. Tampa almost lost that game. They scared me at the end. I was like.
Definitely interference. Let us know if you guys think that was interference. I definitely think it was.
I think that was interference too. But that was a pretty close game. But those are the best games from last week, or the ones that we highlighted. Offensive player of the week. I don't even got to say it. You can take the reins on this one because I'm pretty sure it's unanimous.
Dalvin Cook, man, 4 touchdowns. That's unheard of. I mean, that's just unheard of. What a game. What a game.
Huge,
He is the Vikings
huge,
offense.
huge reception from him towards, I believe that was his final touchdown, but 50-yard? That's just insane.
And 30
and then
touches on the ground also.
163 rushing yards. That's crazy. And
he's getting Derrick Henry volume with his skill set, so
crazy.
It's getting crazy for Dalvin.
It is a little bit alarming though. If I'm an Adam Thielen or Jefferson owner, it is a little bit alarming because now that Dalvin Cook is back, because those guys were putting up good numbers when Cook was injured, when he wasn't getting those snaps, but especially after that. Now Green Bay is horrible against the run, but I don't know. I'd be panicking right now. Not really on Thielen yet, but Jefferson. Jefferson, I would have a little bit of panic for. And the defensive player of the week, guy I never heard of since this week, Robert Spillane for the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 11 total tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pick six, 2 pass deflections. Really just spread out the love all across the stat sheet. Spillane had an amazing game, really pulled together. There's always a different guy on that Steelers defense. I feel like that is a big stepping stone for them to victory. But, he was definitely a big guy this week. What about you? Who do you have as defensive player of the week?
Even though they didn't win, Trayvon Diggs did have a good game. It could have been based off of Carson Wentz's poor play, but 2 interceptions, you can't deny that. And he had a pretty good amount of tackles, so I'll give it to Trayvon Diggs.
Thank you. That's about the only positive thing that came from this week. But trade deadline, the few trades that were made. Everson, of course, from the Cowboys to Detroit. A lot of people were saying this was a big steal. I mean, when we signed him, you call him a fat, old veteran. And then when we trade him away, apparently he's prime Everson Griffin all of a sudden. He wasn't doing much. He was getting outperformed by a guy who just came in the league, who hasn't been in the league for 5 years. And surprisingly, I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence, he looks like he's returning to form. I think he's gotten 2 or 3 forced fumbles on the year now, 3 sacks as well. He's poking his head. So I think that kind of forced Everson out of Dallas, especially with Aldon Smith doing great and Randy Gregory. I'm glad that he's back because he is fast as hell. Same thing with Aldon over there. So Everson didn't really fit. And then Avery Williams. Oh my God, Pittsburgh is going to be unstoppable. That front 7 is scary. I mean, they lost Devin Bush, right? Is it Devin Bush over there?
Yeah, they lost Devin Bush with that
with the ACL tear.
Pretty serious ACL tear.
Bush out for the season with the ACL. What does Pittsburgh do? Oh, they just go pick up probably the best defensive player on the Jets. Or for pretty cheap too. I saw the haul that they ended up getting away with him for pretty cheap. I mean, come on, best front 7 in the league. I mean, what do you think? I think so.
Yeah, it's a pretty good trade for them. Yeah, especially with the loss of Devin Bush.
And then a team that has been really poor against, I feel like really disappointing this year on defense, especially with some of the talent that they have, has gotten a linebacker. Quan Alexander, I feel like pretty much is on the lower end of elite linebackers that were over there at San Francisco, because San Francisco has talent spread all across the board. But Quan Alexander, a great pickup for New Orleans. Maybe we'll give them that anchor because Demario Davis can't do anything. I said before the year that Demario Davis was a top 5 linebacker, and he's proven that. He's good in coverage, but he's a veteran, and he cannot anchor that defense for any longer. So Quan is definitely going to give that defense a spark, hopefully, for NOLA, a big spark that they need, and hopefully he's going to anchor that defense. And then to wrap off the big trades, Desmond King over to Tennessee. They got that cornerback need that they helped. I genuinely thought Tennessee was going to end up getting Stephon Gilmore. The fact that Gilmore didn't move, I mean, just as much as it surprised you, I'm sure, definitely surprised me because everything was pointing to it. But Desmond King definitely bringing, because that secondary over there in Tennessee, it's not good. It's not really good at all. Desmond King hopefully going to bring them that anchor. I kind of hate the fact that the Cowboys didn't jump on this because it was only a 6th rounder, but you can't expect your team to jump on every good deal out there because that's just not how football works. So, yeah, you win some, you lose some. What kind of effect do you see Desmond King having on this offense, though? I mean, defense.
Who did he go to again?
Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good pickup. Pair him up with Malcolm Butler. I mean, Tennessee's defense is a little shaky sometimes. They're definitely a contending team, though.
But that pretty much wraps it up for the trade deadline. And we're going to skip over hits and misses because we got a lot of stuff to get into. Mid-season awards. It's kind of one of the things I've been looking forward to. But before we get into that, I just got a notification. I don't know how I didn't see this earlier, but Stafford got COVID. Matt Stafford is going to be out this week. I wanted to put that out there before we get into the fantasy next week. I'd make sure didn't want to forget it. Stafford, I believe he had a good matchup against Minnesota, but you do not want to be starting this team because he ain't going to be playing as well as Andy Dalton. He got COVID. If you consider starting Andy Dalton, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here, but I just wanted to put that out there. Stafford, Dalton, out with COVID. But midseason awards, let's go. I want to hear, let's start from the bottom. Let's start with the offensive and defensive rookies of the year before we get to the big boy. Who do you have as your offensive rookie of the year?
I'm going to go with Burrow. I mean, a lot of people are going to say Justin Herbert at this point, but Burrow is getting the volume he needs. He's getting a lot of passes. He's getting the wins with Bengals team who did nothing last year. He got 2,272 passing yards and 11 touchdowns. He's going to have a pretty good finish to the season. I believe he's going to get the Rookie of the Year.
I feel like it's going to be a lot tougher race, but I do have Justin Herbert winning this. Herbert looks amazing, and I have him on my fantasy team. The way he's been playing, just the averages he's had since he first started, everything is pointing towards his way. He looks phenomenal out there. That Chargers offense looks great, but they just can't close it up. That team in general just can't close it up. I feel like the only thing that stops Herbert from getting that award is the record of his team. Because as a running back, like when you look back at Saquon, Giants sucked, but a running back doesn't really tailor how good the offense is overall. The quarterback does. So if it's between two quarterbacks and it's a pretty tough race when it comes to stats, I think they're going to lean towards Burrow when it comes to the wins, unless Chargers can really start doing something up. But I do have confidence, and I do think Justin Herbert will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Defensive Rookie of the Year, surprisingly, second-round pick, I thought this Tampa Bay team, their biggest weakness was going to be their secondary. Their linebacker core was insane, and it still is insane. Their pass rushers are good. They're not insane, but good. They've taken some hits, especially with Vita Vea now out for the season. But the guy who's really held it all together for Tampa, Antoine Winfield Jr., a phenomenal standout defensive rookie. I kind of wanted to go with Chase Young, but I feel like the way that Winfield has just made this Tampa Bay secondary scary really just excels. Even though he had that questionable call against New York, that's all people are going to be talking about for the next couple of weeks. He has played amazing. He has really just overstepped expectations, and I feel like that's going to give him the edge when it comes to the Defensive Rookie of the Year. What about you?
I hate to do it, but I got to go with one of the leading odds people. I'm going to go with Chase Young. He's getting a lot of sacks this year. He's the best player, one of the best players on defense of that Washington team. He's been performing great. The whole Washington defense has been performing great. Surprisingly, they've been doing well, even though they have to get on the field a lot because their offense can't do much. He's been doing well. He's been putting up numbers. I believe he's going to get it because of the hype, but I like that take on Winfield. That really surprised me that you said that, but he's been doing very well. I'd like to see him win it, honestly. That's a pretty good take.
And then comeback player of the year. We all thought it was going to be big. We all thought it was going to be Cam Newton. He looked good at the beginning of the season. We were like, oh, easy win. He sucks now. Got COVID. He sucks. So instead of, a lot of people are starting to go Alex Smith now. And I would love to go Alex Smith, but I don't think Alex Smith is getting that start anytime soon just because of how afraid they are. So I'm going to give the comeback player of the year to the guy who's leading his team as an undefeated, the only undefeated team in the league. I'm going to go Big Ben for comeback player of the year. He hasn't played phenomenal, but he's played better than the other candidates, and I feel like that really is going to give him the edge here. What about you?
I'm going to have to agree with you there. You can see the impact that Ben's has on the Steelers team. I mean, last year when I believe like an 8-8 record, something like that, and now they're undefeated right now with Ben Roethlisberger. He's doing great with this team, with the weapons around him. I mean, this team's perfect right now. What can you say? I mean, he's leading the perfect team of the NFL.
No doubt. And a guy who I thought should have won Coach of the Year last year, but, this time around, I feel like he's going to get it just because of how good his team is. Give it to another Steeler, Mike Tomlin for Coach of the Year. He's always been a good defensive coach, but with how he transformed that team last year from a team that looked very poor, and then they ended up finishing, I believe they ended up finishing even, but They almost competed for a wild card spot, and now they're undefeated. Tomlin's an amazing coach. I don't know how I never really, I don't want to say doubted him because he's always been one of the better coaches. But now, I mean, I've seen a lot of people say Bruce Arians, and I believe I said Bruce Arians from the start. But Tomlin looks great. He's really piecing together the puzzle over there in Pittsburgh, and I feel like he's going to take home the award this year.
Yeah, I like that, but I'm gonna have to go with Brian Flores of the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have been surprising people this year. They're gonna be probably the second team in the AFC East. They're outperforming the Patriots, obviously. They're getting wins. I mean, I don't like the when he took out Fitzpatrick for Tua, but I mean he's getting wins with this Miami Dolphins team. I mean, I like it. I'm gonna go with Brian Flores.
Their defense, I feel like, more importantly, has been overperforming. And I don't even know
Yes,
if
absolutely.
I don't even know if Byron Jones is back for them yet. I don't know if he's healthy or not. But yeah, really a great,
And I believe they had a crazy fantasy performance last game or something
yeah.
like that. Didn't they
I
put
believe
up
they.
like over 20?
I
Something
think it
like
had like
that.
23. It was a good performance
Yeah.
nonetheless. But let's get into the big boys. Starting off with Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like we would have both been right on our dark horse picks. I feel like we would have been right on Nick Bosa, but of
Yeah,
course
sadly.
he got taken out for the year. But who do you got on the defensive side of the ball?
I have undeniably Aaron Donald, 9 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 26 total tackles, and 3 forced fumbles this year. It's Aaron Donald. He's one of the, if not the best player in the NFL right now, and he's sure living up to it.
I got somebody else. I considered putting Aaron Donald up here. I considered putting T.J. Watt, but I gotta keep going with the dark horse because I love the fact because if it wasn't gonna be Nick Bosa for my dark horse, it was gonna be this guy. He's been playing insane since he came back from clobbering in what's that guy's name? Mason Rudolph's head. Myles Garrett, I got him winning Defensive Player of the Year. His turnovers that he's been getting are crazy. The sacks he's been getting are crazy. He is making a huge impact on that Cleveland defense, one that nobody really saw nobody really saw him making that big of an impact, but he's transformed this pass rush for Cleveland to, in my eyes, an elite pass rush over there. So I feel like Myles Garrett keeps on excelling, passes Aaron Donald, and takes the lead and wins Defensive Player of the Year. And over on the offensive side of the ball, I got a guy who has continued to get amazing volume, great touches, and not only is he getting a lot of touches, he's consistent and he's productive with them. He's a touchdown machine. He's an overall machine. Josh Norman's daddy. I gotta go Derrick Henry for Offensive Player of the Year. He is playing insane. You even got to talk about that insane game that he had against, I believe it was Houston, right? That he had that big game against.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Derrick Henry's going to continue be the rushing leader for the second year in a row. I wouldn't be surprised to see if it's a guy like not Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, or whoever leads the league in receiving yards. But Derrick Henry is a beast right now. And if Tennessee managed to keep on giving him the touches and kind of replace, like, I would say about 5 to 6 of those touches with receptions, oh my God. Because he is deadly in the receiving game. He's just not really used there in much, in my opinion. So if they can make that transition, it's a landslide for Offensive Player of the Year, in my opinion.
All right, well, if you want to talk about someone who's deadly in the receiving game and on the ground, let's talk about Alvin Kamara. Also, you can make the same arguments with Henry. He's been one of the most consistent players all year. Catches passes, he gets it done on the ground. Overall, the best player for the Saints team this year. He's been amazing. He's been winning them games. He can turn a screenplay into something crazy. This guy's been very good. I don't like to give it to quarterbacks either. I think it's kind of boring because they always win the MVP. I like when the running back or receiver gets it. I'm going with Alvin Kamara. I can make the same argument for Derrick Henry too. They're both wonderful players.
Yeah, and then I feel like it could possibly be another unanimous vote with how good he's been playing. He'll finally get that one MVP vote that he deserves, and he's going to get the majority of them, in my opinion, with how he's been carrying such a horrible secondary. I mean, an atrocious secondary. Their secondary is horrible. Ours is horrible, but theirs is almost just as bad. Got to give it to Russell Wilson, obviously. He's getting this team wins. He is the Seattle Seahawks. They finally are letting Russ cook, and he's cooking up a Thanksgiving meal. What about you?
I got Russell Wilson. I'm going to be excited to see him win it this year. Great guy, great player. We've all been waiting on this type of year from him. There's nothing else to say. I mean, what a year, what a start. Hopefully, he can finish this out without any injuries or anything like that. What a season by Wilson.
I mean, everyone kind of joked about it at first, but maybe naming his son Win was the actual good luck charm. And then over there at Super Bowl town, now we ain't talking about specific players. We're talking about all around teams. Who do you got coming out of the AFC for the Super Bowl?
I'm sticking with my prediction from the beginning of the year. I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated right now, the Chiefs, they've always been good in the playoffs, man. I just think they're going all the way again. I'm not going to say who my winner is yet, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
Pretty much the same point I wanted to hammer down on as you did. Pittsburgh in the past have hyped themselves up. I don't think they'll go undefeated. There's no doubt they'll stay like this. They're going to take losses. And I still feel like they will lose a game to Baltimore, especially after last game. I still have confidence that they will lose one game. But I really wanted to go Pittsburgh here, but with how they've managed to just choke leads and just disappear in the playoffs before, especially with really good teams. I mean, you didn't win a Super Bowl with Big Ben, a guy who I think when he was in his prime with Pittsburgh was a top 5, maybe even top 3 quarterback. That's how good he was. He led the league in passing that year substantially. I think he threw like 5,100 yards that season. Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, y'all couldn't go to a Super Bowl with that, and I doubt you go to a Super Bowl here. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well. Overall, good team. They've always been good. Andy Reid finally is getting the playoff success that he deserves. And I mean, Mahomes is that dude. And then over in the NFC, now, I'm going to submit the crown. I'll give it to you. With how much they've been able to do, the improvements that they have made, and how surprising their defense has been. The Bucks are going to the Super Bowl.
Love to see it, guys.
The Bucks are going to the Super Bowl.
They have Antonio Brown in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing. I didn't think the certain guys would end up piecing together like they would. I didn't think Ronald Jones would be the guy they were going to get. I didn't think Leonard Fournette was going to sign to the team. I definitely didn't think Antonio Brown was going to go there. But I thought their secondary was going to be bad and their O-line was going to continue to be bad. And their O-line hasn't been the best, but they've been better. And their secondary, overall, their defense is arguably the best in the league right now. I know they're not the best pass defense. I believe that's the Rams, but they're playing great. Any team that plays this good is going to be able to compete for a championship. I don't know their chances of winning that. I'm sure you still are sticking by your prediction with the Bucks, right?
Yes, that's my NFC team.
But Super Bowl MVP though, I feel like for the Chiefs, it's not really all that big of a toss-up. But if the Bucks win this game, I feel like it would have to be a defensive player because you got such an exotic enemy. Yeah, Tom Brady, duh. But I feel like if the Bucks were to win this game, same thing. If the Steelers were to go, I feel like the Super Bowl MVP would easily be T.J. Watt because he would be the one to save that game. If the Bucks were to go, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a guy like Levante David or hell even Devin White or the rookie. The rookie has been saving games for them left and right. But yeah, I have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl though against the Bucks. I feel like they're still the better team, the safer team really. They're more consistent with their play, even though they have taken a couple of L's. They are more consistent. They are the better team. I believe they're 7-1 right now. But yeah, Super Bowl MVP, of course, with the Chiefs winning. I got Mahomes. What about you?
All right. Well, I'll talk about my winner and my MVP. In the beginning of the year, I did predict the Chiefs would win this matchup. But I am happy to say that I have changed my prediction. Woo! And I believe the Buccaneers will win this game 38-36. You have a wonderful
specific
team,
on it.
And you have Tom Brady on the field in the playoffs. Like, you don't get much better than this. Tom Brady with a great defense, insane weapons. He's never had these type of weapons in New England, and he still won it. I can't see the Buccaneers losing this year, man. I'm really high on them. And I'm giving the Super Bowl MVP to Father Tom, whatever you want to call him. I mean, what a year. He's one of the MVP favorites right now. I love the Buccaneers team right now. I'm starting to grow as a fan of them, even though I'm always going to be a Patriots fan. I'm starting to love watching these Buccaneers games. I'd like to see Tom Brady succeed with them. I'm taking them in the Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, yeah, guys, midseason mark is here. Now, let's go to the next part of the season, starting off with Week 9. Of course, Fantasy is going to be the main part of this part. So I want to hear who your studs and duds of the week is.
Wow. I'm going with my same stud of the week from last week. I'm going with Dalvin Cook versus Detroit. He gets another wonderful matchup. I mean, Dalvin Cook owners you got to be so happy right now. You got to be so happy you draft a guy. But I am going to predict an injury. I'm sorry. I will predict an injury before the playoffs on Dalvin Cook. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just going to happen. Been saying it from the beginning. It will happen. It's Dalvin Cook. He gets injured every season. He plays Detroit this week, though. He played Green Bay last week, the worst versus running backs, and now he plays the second worst versus running backs. I'm expecting another 30-point game, 30 plus. I mean, he put up 48 and surprised everyone last week, but I'm expecting a very high ceiling and a very high floor. I mean, Dalvin Cook is the number one running back from now on, in my opinion, unless he goes down with something. And as my suck or dud of the week, I'm going with Terry McLaurin versus the Giants. He's going to go against James Bradberry, and if you watch these games with James Bradberry, he's been a stud on defense.
Phenomenal. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been one of the most underrated players in the league. McLaurin, he did play last time he played the Giants. He did get 10 targets. He had a pretty decent game, but I think he's going to get shut down. I don't think his owners are going to be too happy with him this week.
At my stud, I debated going with Dalvin Cook because he does have an amazing matchup, but I feel like it's almost too obvious to go with him, so I am going to change it up. Seattle plays Buffalo. I know a guy who gets a lot of deep targets. Stephon Diggs is going to be my stud of the week. He's been playing great. He's a 6th overall wide receiver on the year, and he gets the matchup of all matchups this year. If it's not Dallas, it's Seattle. And Diggs, I mean, you said the same thing about D-Hop, and that's why I didn't say, I could go with that when you said what you did about D-Hop against Dallas. Of course, he had a dud that week, but I wanted to save it for this week because I knew especially if John Brown was healthy, he would be the start of the week for wide receivers. I would have both Stephon and John Brown as starts, but he's not really all that healthy right now. Stephon Diggs is going to have a great game. Not 53, no Tyler Lockett type of game, but he is going to have an amazing game. If he doesn't, shoot me in the back of the head, because I don't know how else. I don't know how I could get that wrong. If I get this wrong, Josh Allen, you are trash. But my dud, I'm not going to go with Zeke the second week in a row. I want to so badly because I hate this team, but I'm going to go Todd Gurley, one of my guys too. He's been great for me this year. He's been very consistent. Touchdown dependent, yes, but he's been getting those touchdowns. He's been getting a shit ton of them. And even though the secondary for Atlanta is bad and it probably is going to set him up on the goal line, all it takes is one defensive stop from Denver, and Todd Gurley's putting up 0 points that drive. This run defense is insane for Denver. And they've been one of the best in the league. That's the only shining part of their whole entire defense is the rushing, and more specifically Bradley Chubb. He's really been getting in there and disrupting a lot of plays this season. So I don't think Todd Gurley has a great game at all this week. He's going to be camping on my bench. But let's go into starts and sits for the week, starting off with QB. I got Derek Carr against the Los Angeles Chargers. Some guys are still putting Justin Herbert at streams. Justin Herbert is a must start right now. I don't care what you tell me. The weapons that he's had since he started, they're not really getting all that injured. Once Eckler comes back, it is going to be a field day for Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert right now, I believe he's like, since he came into the league and really started, he's like a top 6 QB. His averages all around the board, especially with fantasy points, are insane. He's a must start. That's why I got to go on the other side here to Derek Carr. Drew Lock looked really good against LA, and Derek Carr is substantially better quarterback than Drew Lock, so I expect him to have a good week. 22-25 is what I'm looking at. And then over on the sit side, he looked a little bit roughened up against Atlanta. I'm going to go Bridgewater against Kansas City. I don't expect anyone from this Carolina offense to do good, besides, of course, Christian McCaffrey. But no, I don't think Bridgewater has a good week here at all. Kansas City, it's a divisional. No, it's not a divisional matchup. What am I saying? But, yeah, I don't think Bridgewater has a good week here at all.
I also had Derek Carr as my start versus the Chargers. He's got pretty good floor lately. He's been doing well. He's been doing well all season. Surprisingly, no one really knows about him though. He's owned in like 48% of leagues. I'm pretty sure. He's got a really good floor against the Chargers this week. I'd consider starting him. And then for my quarterback, I got Drew Brees going against Tampa Bay. He played them week 1, and he did not have that good of a week. A lot of people aren't playing Drew Brees anyways, but if you have to, I wouldn't play him against Tampa Bay.
And then for running back, we got some big matches, a lot of guys injured, but I want to hear who you end up pulling out for your running back start of the week.
I'm going with the Patriots, young back. I'm going Damian Harris versus the Jets. Busted up run defense. He had 16 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown last game against the Bills. So I think he can. He's the workhorse back on the ground for that team right now. I know they have a ton of running backs that they utilize in the passing games. They got James White. I believe Sonny Michel is still out on injury and whatnot. But Damian Harris has stepped up for the Patriots. He's been one of the only bright spots for them lately. Yeah, I got him versus the Jets this week as my start. And then as my sit running back, get this guy off your team. I got him off my team last week. I traded him for Keenan, Ezekiel Elliott versus Pittsburgh. Get him off your team. He sucks. He doesn't suck, but his team sucks. He can't help what's going on. He hasn't been too good this year either, personally. There's not much to say about Zeke. You got to sell him now if you're going to sell him, because no one's going to want him if he does this again for the third week in a row with like a 6 to 8 point game as a workhorse running back. That's just sad.
Hey, he just isn't getting the carries there anymore. Over at the start column, I debate it. I think it's a tie for me. At the start, I'm going to put a tie between Chase Edmonds and JaMycal Hasty. I like JaMycal Hasty a lot this week just because Green Bay is so bad at stopping the run, it's not even funny. Like, just not only stopping the run, but anything a running back does. A running back even comes towards them and they go, and run the opposite direction. JaMycal Hasty could have a huge game here, but it really does depend if San Francisco falls behind big. Then Jerick McKinnon is going to get the bases. Why? Because they used Jerick McKinnon in the pass game. They always had used him in the pass game more than any other running back when Mostert is not there. But if San Francisco can hold their ground, surprisingly, because, hell, Green Bay lost to the Minnesota Vikings. They didn't lose to the Vikings. They lost to Dalvin Cook. JaMycal Hasty could have a great week. And then Chase Edmonds, of course. When Chase Edmonds, I feel like, is a running back one, he is more of a workhorse, and I feel like he's more consistent with his carries than Kenyon Drake is. Kenyon Drake has had one good week. He's been the running back one there for the entire year and only had one good week. Of course, it was against us, but still, Edmonds, great matchup in Miami. I feel like if you have a choice between them two, start Edmonds. But if you have both of those, if you can't get Edmonds, definitely go for JaMycal Hasty. He's too bright of a spot this week for me to ignore. And then over at my sit column, I don't want to say sell him, fuck it. Sell him. Because that backfield is so horrendous. I hate it so much. I don't know how I thought it was a good idea to trade for this guy earlier, but Jonathan Taylor, sell him. That backfield is horrendous. He will have one good game, a couple of all right games, but about a 19 bomb, 2, 15-15. Look like he's coming up as a running back one, and then Naheem Hines and that other dude will just take his carries. They'll have themselves good weeks. They'll be waiver wire pickups while you're just sitting there with saddle Jonathan Taylor getting all of his carries taken away. That coach over there in Indiana hates your fantasy teams. I would sell Jonathan Taylor as soon as possible.
I like to touch on Taylor also. I wouldn't say sell him just yet, honestly, Brett. I know he's disappointing people, but I wouldn't say sell him. I'm an owner of Jonathan Taylor. They said he had an ankle injury, a slight ankle injury, but that's no excuse for getting 2 touches in the second half. I'm mad at this coaching staff. They're giving the touchdowns away, but it was Jonathan Taylor's fault. They did give him an opportunity on the goal line, and he just didn't come through. I don't know about selling him yet because you're not going to get too much value for him. I'd wait and see if he has a decent game this week and then try to sell him if you want to. But it's a tough situation for Taylor. Yeah. It's just not the year everyone expected behind that great O-line.
Yeah, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Antonio Gibson, a lot of people have been, tossing him up, and I traded for him. I didn't start him against Dallas, sadly, but, I started Jamal Williams over him. But Gibson had his best game of the season against Baltimore, one of the better rush defenses. So Taylor could definitely have a good week. But I don't like this backfield. I don't trust this backfield, and I never will. I don't trust Detroit. I used to not trust Detroit now, but apparently DeAndre Swift is starting to lead in carries. He's starting to get a lot more work in the passing game. And now with Stafford out, Swift is going to be relied on a lot more. Not with Jonathan Taylor. Phillip Rivers finally looked good last week. You can look it up. He had 0 turnovers. He had 3 touchdowns. He was pretty accurate. Phillip Rivers looked good, and it seems like when Phillip Rivers plays good, Naheem Hines gets the majority of the running back play there. So that's why I don't really like Taylor and go ahead and sell him. But wide receivers, Houston looks really good. They've got 2 wide receivers that it's kind of hard to choose between them. But when it comes to this week, I'm going to start Brandon Cooks against Jacksonville instead of Will Fuller. Will Fuller is the safer floor. If you have a substantial matchup or at least somewhat of a challenging matchup this year, I would go Will Fuller. But if you want that bigger upside, you want that boom or bust, not really bust this week, I feel like, but Brandon Cooks is a better guy. He put up 30 against Jacksonville last time around, and I feel like he'll do good. Why? Because that C.J. Henderson guy for Jacksonville, he's been on and off, but he's shown a lot of more bright spots. Although with Brandon Cooks on the other side of the field, the rest of their cornerbacks suck. I mean, they suck. C.J. Henderson is the only good guy when it comes to quarterbacks on that team. So that's why I feel like Brandon Cooks is going to have the higher upside. And then for the sits, you may have seen this guy's been getting a lot of volume. Kind of scared you as an A.J. Brown owner. I'm an A.J. Brown owner. Doesn't scare me anymore. Why? Because this guy usually has about a couple of good games and falls off. Especially this week against Chicago. I'm going to sit Corey Davis. He is still a good waiver wire ad, I feel like, just because of the potential of his schedule. But A.J. Brown is still the wide receiver 1 there. He's gotten a touchdown every week. Corey Davis had a big week last week, but don't expect that because Chicago's secondary, they've been good this week. I mean, not this week, but they've been good this whole year. And I feel like they won't be able to stop the run. I feel like that's going to be their main thing with here. They won't be able to stop the run because no one can stop the run. But the one thing that they are going to limit, at least, is Corey Davis. Maybe not A.J. Brown, but Corey Davis, I feel like, will be limited, probably held behind 10 points. I don't see a good week for him at all here. But who are your wide receivers?
I got Will Fuller versus Jacksonville. Flipping him and Brandon Cooks. I mean, honestly, either one could go off. Will Fuller, he was in trade talks with Green Bay. That would have been interesting, but it didn't happen. Nothing happened in the trade deadline. But moving on from that, I got as my sit Brandon Ayuk versus Green Bay. We know they have Jair Alexander. They have some pretty good safeties over there. Ayuk has been getting really good volume, rushing the ball, catching the ball. I mean, he's doing everything over there. They like to do that with their receivers. But, I mean, I'm seeing a sit coming up with him. I don't know if he's going to continue what he's been doing. He's been great for those guys that snagged him off the waiver wire, though. I'd probably just bench him this week. I'm not dropping him or anything yet. And you want me to roll right into the tight ends?
Roll right into the tight ends.
All right, let's go Ingram versus Washington this week. 10 targets versus the Bucks. It looks like Daniel Jones likes him. I like him this week versus Washington. He looked pretty good. If he can stay away from injuries, stay healthy, he's looking pretty quick out there on the field. Daniel Jones seems to like him. Daniel Jones has got to step it up, though, turning the ball over and whatnot, and Ingram would definitely see a lot more touchdowns. And as my sit, I'm going with Jonnu Smith. He's been so bad since Corey Davis has been back. It's not even been funny. He's had less than 4 targets. He's had 2 targets last week, 4 targets the game before. He hasn't put up like over 3 points, I don't even think, in the past 3 weeks. He hasn't been good with Corey Davis back. There's too many red zone threats for him to succeed anymore. A.J. Brown's been getting some in the red zone, but he's due for a touchdown. But, I mean, I just don't trust him anymore. I've dropped him. I picked him back up and I've dropped him again. I mean, he's one of the most volatile tight ends that we've seen. That's all I got to say.
And then if a guy named Antonio, I would be putting Gronk up here because his matchup is good. But with Antonio Brown and Quan Alexander there as well, Gronk, I don't feel like is going to be the best start this week. Although I got a guy on my team who I know has been good, who has been very consistent, and who I think, surprisingly, some people are going to find this. I'm going to put this out there as a little bit of a hot take. I feel like he'll outscore Kelsey this week. I got Noah Fant against Atlanta. I saw what Hayden Hurst did against us, and I was scared. But when I saw what Dalton Schultz did against Atlanta, everybody was projecting him to be a top 5 tight end. Of course, Dak got injured, but he got peppered with targets. Now give it to a guy like Noah Fant. He's got better wheels. He's got better hands. And he's the only guy that Drew Lock can rely on. Noah Fant can have himself a huge week. Maybe not no 40-point bomb like Kittle had against the Eagles, but I really would not be surprised. And I think that he could eclipse Kelsey this week and be the tight end 1. So I got Noah Fant. if you have competition there, if it's like Noah Fant between Hawkinson or whatever, start Noah Fant. He is the biggest must start out of all these guys, really, for me. He's the biggest must start just because of the potential. The potential was out of this world. And then over there on the sit column, I got a guy who's been really disappointing. The volume has been there, but he hasn't done much with it. And when it comes to the end zone, Justin Herbert just doesn't look his way, it seems like. I got Hunter Henry as a sit against Las Vegas. Las Vegas is 13th overall against tight ends, and they got a guy named Corey Littleton who has been playing great for them. I dropped Hunter Henry. I was hoping he would perform good this week, and he didn't. He really did not. So, yeah, I got Hunter Henry as a big sit. I'm going to roll right into the defensive special teams. Obvious this week, Pats, Jets. I was considering if Stephon Gilmore were to get traded like I thought they were going to. I was like, oh, maybe the Pats might not be the most ideal start here, but they still got Stephon. Stephon is still one of the greatest cornerbacks in the league, and they still do have a great secondary, in my opinion. Maybe not the best, not anymore, but they still do have a good secondary. So I got Pat's going to be locking down the Jets this week. If y'all lose to the Jets, Jesus Christ, pray for you. I will pray for you. And then Bears defense. Now, I know I said Corey Davis was going to be a sit earlier, but Derrick Henry, I feel like, will tear up this Bears defense, and they're going to be so focused on Derrick Henry that they're either going to give it to Adam Humphries or A.J. Brown. They're going to be really focused on, I feel like, shutting down Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, because if those two guys pop off, it's a guaranteed dub for Tennessee, in my opinion, because it always seems like whenever Jonnu gets great targets and looks good on the field, Tennessee's offense as a whole performs better. And same thing with Corey Davis, even though they lost against the Cincinnati Bengals last week. A.J. Brown didn't have all that great of a week. I feel like A.J. Brown probably be around the 16 to 20 mark just because of that touchdown upside that he has. And Derrick Henry, he's Derrick Henry. He could put up 14. He could put up 50. Who knows? But, yeah, all in all, I just don't trust this Bears defense that much. Even though they're probably going to lock down about one guy, I still don't trust them enough to roll with them this week. What about you?
I'm going with the Patriots. I'd like to touch on Gilmore a little bit. I'm actually pretty sad that we did not trade him as a Patriot fan. I thought that was a great position. I know. I'll get into it. I thought that was a great position to get rid of Gilmore right there. I mean, our secondary played fine without him in that game versus the Bills. I mean, we have great options. We have Jonathan Jones. We have J.C. Jackson, who J.C. Jackson is the most. I'm gonna say he's the most underrated player in the league. The most underrated player in the league. No one gives him his recognition. We have a good secondary without Gilmore. I thought that was a great position for Belichick to trade him off, get a first-round pick next year or something like that, and grab a weapon. Say, like, somebody like, I don't know, throw him to the Bears or something and get Allen Robinson or something like that. I don't know if they'd give him up. Just some type of receiver like that we need. Go for the team needs, not like we don't need secondary players. We need an offensive threat that we can rely on. But whoever thought we would be talking about the Patriots could lose to the Jets. No one would have ever thought that. I'd just like to touch on that. It's funny that
it's
people
great.
Are actually
it's amazing. I'm loving
it. Everyone's loving it except for Patriots fans. We never thought we'd see the day where it'd be like, oh, we might lose to the Jets this week. Like, no one ever thought that would happen, man. It's a sad year for Patriots fans. You gotta be there in the bad times though to celebrate the good times. And I'm going with the Dolphins as my sit versus the Cardinals. Cardinals have been great. I know people are going to get excited that the Dolphins had that great game. And, oh, let me pick them up and throw them out there again. Don't do it. You're facing Kyler Murray. You're facing DeAndre Hopkins. You're facing Chase Edmonds. Don't do it. It's the Dolphins. I mean, can't help but so much.
Yeah, and the waiver wire, it's getting thin. It's getting really thin.
Yeah,
and
really
it's not
thin.
just because we have an 8-man league. It's getting thin all over the place. But if anybody is left, especially in the running back department, it seems like there's nobody there. But I don't, even though, especially because we play off the NFL app, it looks like they're saying that Chris Carson could play this week. I don't see it as a possibility. So pick up DJ Dallas. He looked great. He looked very involved. He's not owned as much as JaMycal Hasty just because of what JaMycal Hasty was able to do with what he got last week. He's a lot higher owned. I feel like DJ Dallas is still a guy that a lot of people are sleeping on because his projections aren't really up there. But I like DJ Dallas a lot, especially because what did he put up, like 22 last week? He's a great pickup.
He did pretty well.
He's a great pickup, especially for the percentage that he is owned around the leagues. What about you?
I got a guy I touched on earlier, Damian Harris. He's not owned in too many leagues. Go and get him. He has a pretty easy running schedule up ahead, and I really like him. I think they're going to start to use him a lot more. I think he's going to be that guy on the ground that they're going to go to when they need it, near the goal line, and just in general, unless it's like a third down situation with a lot of yards needed, then they're going to go to James White. But in my well, I'll go ahead and get to the receiver, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll say Corey Davis. If you need one bad, Corey Davis got 10 targets in the past 2 games. I mean that's very good volume. You can't deny that. Corey Davis, he's volatile like always, but if you need someone to play, I mean I'd put him in the flex honestly.
And then round off the waiver wire here, we just started to ditch QBs because we started to realize our QB streams are pretty much our QB starts. But at wide receiver, I got a little bit of a risky take. Kenny G is out. A big teardrop. Kenny, I mean, he had an amazing, one of his best matchups of the year, and he's out for it. Really hurt me to see him go down last week, but thank God I didn't start him because
thank God I'm playing Brett this week.
I'm gonna kill you. But Marvin Jones and I think his name is Marlon Hall. It's Marvin Jones or Marlon Hall this week. I feel like are really good waiver wire pickups. Marvin Jones is safer because he did get 2 touchdowns last week, and they're not good. They really are not good. That Minnesota defense over there. Marvin Jones could be good, but Marlon Hall though he got more yards. So if you're looking for a guy, if you think yards are more safer, depending on how your league scores or whatsoever, consider Marvin Jones or Marlon Hall, or if Jones is already owned, because I'm pretty sure he is owned over 50% in leagues, consider Marlon Hall, and I like Marlon Hall as a pickup, as a stream, a lot more this week than Corey Davis. But let's wrap this off. Let's get into the final games, the best games of next week, I feel like. Starting off with Thursday night's game, San Francisco versus Green Bay. Green Bay caught the COVID. So I saw the San Francisco shut down their facilities today because apparently they got the COVID. But San Francisco, not only did they get COVID, but they are hurting bad with injuries. Not so much for Green Bay. They got Devontae Adams back. Aaron Jones is questionable. I hope he plays. I pray that he plays because if he doesn't, I'm going to have to plug in JaMychal Hasty. And even though I'm high on JaMychal Hasty this week, he's not better than Aaron Jones. I need Aaron Jones because I don't know what I'm gonna do without him. It seems like when Aaron Jones doesn't play, I always lose. It's a guaranteed L for me. But yeah, I got Green Bay winning this game this week. They lost against Minnesota, but there is no way they don't let that win get into their heads. They're gonna come back confident this game and beat San Francisco.
I gotta go with Green Bay. I'm not gonna bet on Nick Mullins or without Kittle. Like I'm just not. Devontae Adams has been an absolute beast. Him and Rodgers just have the connection, one of the best connections in the league. I'm going with Green Bay, hammering down on Green Bay. That's a confident pick.
And then easily for me, well, I don't want to say easily, but I feel like it'll be the better game. Of course, talked about earlier with my stud of the week, Seattle versus Buffalo. I feel like Stephon Diggs will have a great game. If you're a Josh Allen owner, you're hoping that he puts up another monster performance like he was towards the beginning of the year. And I feel like he won't put up a monster performance, but he'll do good. But despite that, I still think Seattle comes out with this. I mean, Buffalo's rush defense at the beginning of the Seattle Buffalo being the game of the week, it's because this game exists. Saints Bucks, a rematch. I still feel like this will be a great game, and AB is back. You can say what you can about but most people are having their deadlines towards the end and the middle of November. But yeah, wrap it up, guys. Thank you guys for watching a little bit longer here, but if you stay to the end, we appreciate it. Leave a like, sub, as always. If you appreciate the channel, we really do appreciate all the support. And yeah, peace out.